Okay, welcome to Into the Channel, a podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, subscribe, follow us YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. At ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on Threads. Into the Channel, presented by just a couple American bros. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
Feeling fantastic, buddy. There's a big game on Sunday that I feel like a lot of people enjoyed across the world, and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Can't wait. Not a ton of Champions League happenings this week, but some UWCL teams were in action, so we were blessed with some more great football this weekend. Where do you want to get started?
I mean, we're two American bros. We love our football. It was a game of great consequence on Sunday with an exciting ending, a thrilling ending. And obviously, we don't give a shit about the Chiefs versus the 49ers. We're talking about Lyon and PSG. That was a football game right there, Bubba.
That's football.
Damn right.
Hell yeah. Let's start there. PSG entered this visit to Lyon, 10 points behind the defending champs with a game in hand. PSG had a slight edge in possession, pass accuracy in this one. Lyon, 3 times as many shots and 3 times as many shots on target. From jump, though, PSG treated this one like a straight-up knockout stage match. And you could really tell Lyon was like, okay, I see what level we got to be on today. Poor Daniela Van de Donk, she gets knocked around for the 74-plus minutes she was on and took a sort of really vicious kick to the chest. That was a little scary. Lindsey Horan took home a bloody nose in this one. That got pretty nasty. This one, not for the faint of heart.
For sure, man. I mean, I think PSG came out there, and we've talked about PSG obviously a bunch over the course of the Champions League. They want to play fast, but they're going to play physical too. They are such a compelling club in the way that they will kick your ass and they will outrun you. The more we watch this team, the more I fall in love with them, frankly.
I mean, pretty unexpected because, you know, the PSG brand is not one that I've typically gravitated to. But the way they play is just so impressive and overpowering.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they will win, Champions League or, D1F to get the new playoff system this year, so that'll be exciting. But they absolutely can. And I think in this one, you see 66th minute, Tabitha Chawinga does it again. 1-on, doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter how many you throw back there. She's faster than you. She's relentless. And that finish, she's like running up the left-hand side. So her left foot is like her outside foot. And she somehow like twists towards goal. I can't even really recreate it, but she like twists to the point where she's able to hit the ball with the outside and top of her outside left foot to the right, back across the goalkeeper, totally like befuddling Lyon's Christiane Endler. Like, just a wondrous finish from Chawinga, who came in at number 65 on the Guardian's top 100 list, but might be making a case for, best left winger in the world. She might be the scariest, and there's a lot of 2024 still left to play. Unfortunately, though, 90th minute, desperate-ish ball through from Delphine Cascarino. Takes a very unlucky bounce off of perhaps maybe a little bit too lit, Elisa de Almeida. Ball ends up in PSG's net. 1-1, and Lyon, I feel 100% fine saying this, Lyon escapes their own stadium with a draw. Mr. Grant Engel, what stuck out to you in this one?
I think you're 100% right. I think if you're PSG, you walk out of that match saying, should have won. Like, it's amazing to think about. And our guy, shout out to Cam Pope, who was on the broadcast for DAZN, he pointed it out. It's one of those matches where beforehand, if you would have told PSG, we're walking out of here with a point, they'd be like, okay, that's great. And then you play the match and the way it happened, and they're walking out of there with a point, and they're like, shit, that is a missed opportunity. Because they played well enough to win. I think they deserved to win.
I think they definitely deserved to win. I just wanted to see what their reaction was going to be.
Yeah.
I'm not really rooting for PSG. I'm really was more interested to see, was it going to be like a little bit of an explosion of emotion just from sort of kind of being like second best or sometimes third best in their own league. And now really just being like, no, we can go blow for blow with you. And we're definitely not scared.
Yeah, and I think, as long as we're talking about not scared, Katarzyna Kiedranik, goalkeeper for PSG, fantastic performance. I mean, she had some rockets hit at her. I think it was around like the 20th minute. We're playing Basha ball. She is like in perfect position for the free kick. She's way out on the right wing. God. She delivers. She does exactly what Selma Basha always does. She delivers the perfect cross off the free kick. It goes right onto Lindsay Horan's head. And I think if you ask Horan in that moment, she has to feel like she needs to score that. She drilled it, but she drilled it right at Kiedronick. And Kiedronick still needed the great reflexes to stop it, even though it's coming straight at her. I mean, she needed to get her hands up in the right way so she's not like, it's not like off her chest, and then like how that happens with goalkeepers, like you kind of fumble it a little bit if you don't get two hands on it. And she was right there. She had a couple other great catches, saved another Hegerberg header later in the match. I think that combined with there were a couple chances that Lyon didn't quite take advantage of, but this was by no means was this Lyon blowing it. I think they just kind of got outplayed throughout big stretches of the match.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, PSG won the possession battle. That cross though for Basha, I mean, perfect. Like it's just perfect. I mean, her skill is off the charts. I mean, it's kind of mesmerizing. And I think that you were right on that Lindsay Horan try, because if you watch the replay from kind of the reverse angle from behind the goal and you look at Horan's face, she has like the wide-eyed look of like, oh, I got her. And then like it gets saved and she's just like, oh, I don't got her. Kind of a bummer.
Hell yeah.
Lindsay Horan, great appearance, by the way, on Sam Mew's podcast, really illuminating on a lot of stuff, talking about U.S. Women's National Team experience versus playing in Europe.
That's excellent.
And yeah, totally second the Kiedronick call out. She was out of her mind. I mean, they were all just amped. Like, they were like, let's go. Let's play 90 plus minutes of football. We're going to beat this team. It's not like we can beat this team. It's like, we're beating this team today. Even when they scored, it was just kind of like, no like explosive celebration or no sort of like anticipation for the whistle. They're just like, no, all business. That's why it was kind of such a bummer to see De Almeida, OG that one. But even still, she was just kind of like, all right, my mistake, but this is not the end of it.
Yeah, I was really a bummer for De Almeida, who we talk about a lot on this podcast, is just an engine back there at center back. And speaking of, Kiedronick's great play, I think she had it covered before De Almeida's touch. And,
yes,
it's so tough. It's so tough as a center back or even any kind of fullback where your instinct is just like, I can't let it get by me. Like, I'm just going to blast this one and we'll live with the corner. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to happen. It happens to the very best. As we could see, I would consider De Almeida up there in that tier amongst the very best. It's just going to happen sometimes. And you even saw it on De Almeida after the match, which sometimes I don't love this when broadcast crews do this, where they like zoom in on somebody like, man, what a heartbreaking moment for you. That's terrible. And they like leave the camera on them. I get annoyed when they do it in pretty much any sport. But I think with De Almeida, she's such a mentality monster, such a tough player. I feel like she's like, okay, my bad, everybody. Let's go out there. And she's going to be fine next match.
Oh, yeah. No, she was fine for the rest of that match. She knows it's not really... It's just part of the game. It's just kind of what happens. But really, really captivating 90 plus minutes of football in that one.
Oh yeah.
It kind of had like Champions League final, semifinal type vibes, which was really, really exciting. Because like you said, I think you mentioned this earlier in the year, they're not really just playing for the table, right? They're really playing for like mind share, attention, audience, like we've got the crown now, and I think that's kind of what's available to them after a long time of Lyon kind of like being top dog in that division. A couple upcoming matches. PSG, they play Guingamp Saturday, February 17th. Lyon won't be back in action until Sunday, March 3rd, when they take on Dijon, who sits 9th in the table in a spicy matchup. So yeah, we'll have to wait a few weeks to catch Lyon. And PSG, yeah, they'll be playing a couple of days here.
We got to give a shout out to our guy Cam Pope and DAZN. This has been really cool to be able to just watch these matches, and now I feel like we are kind of spider webbing out a little bit, which we will get into later in this podcast. But now we kind of get to see more teams, more players outside of the UEFA Women's Champions League. So if PSG is playing, I'm going to look for a way to watch PSG. I think that's just kind of how this is going to go for me for the remainder of the season.
Oh my God, I'm right there with you. Let's go ahead though. An old ITC derby, Manchester City, Arsenal, the Women's FA Cup. Tell me what you saw in this one.
Tell you the Into the Channel derby not been going well for your boy the past few matches. What I saw on the men's side of things, Arsenal beats City in the Community Shield. Then you got us again in the league over at the Emirates. And then earlier this season, Arsenal women beat us in the league. And so I was not feeling super confident coming into this one. But I will tell you, watching the Champions League, and we talk about this as a learning podcast, and we're kind of watching these teams and seeing who we like. It's been awesome because I've been like enjoying multiple squads, and obviously with a special enjoyment of Braun, of course. But there is just, I don't know, there's something in my head, man. When I turn on the TV to watch a match and those sky blue kits are on there and they are matched up against a team wearing red, I just immediately fall right back into my traditional fandom. So, with that said, I did not appreciate the shithousery of Katie McCabe. Your Irish left back for your Arsenal needlessly is around like the 25th minute. She pushes over Lauren Hemp, World Cup hero Lauren Hemp, mind you. And then Hemp gets up for the throw-in. No call. It's out of bounds. It was a clear shove by McCabe. Hemp gets up, tries to move down the field for the throw-in. McCabe is like bodying her unnecessarily. You know, it's fine with a little physical play. And then Hemp gives her just the slightest of touches, and she behaves like she was been hit by a Mack truck. And McCabe takes a dive to the ground. You can see Hemp like, really, we're fucking doing this today. And I just got a question for you, man. What kind of operation is Jonas Eidevall running over there at Arsenal?
You know, to be honest, I'm not really sure what kind of cockamamie operation old Jonas is running. Maybe, you know, this one was pretty frustrating as an Arsenal fan. This is our first probably into the channel derby because the prior ones were on the men's side. Back to Jonas, though. Maybe his pregame speech, little over-indexed on being physical, being aggressive, and perhaps maybe he overlooked the part about actually finding open teammates, proceeding to attempt to kick the ball into the other team's goal. You know, no biggie. It was the first half to be forgotten.
It was tough, Ben. I mean, the refs let a lot of physical play go, I thought, from both sides.
Yep.
There was some good up and down, I felt like, from City's attack. Obviously, the aforementioned Lauren Hemp, the legend Bunny Shaw, and Chloe Kelly. And I'm not going to front on Arsenal's threatening trio. You guys have Beth Mead, Alessia Russo, and Caitlin Ford. You guys were causing us some issues there. But after halftime, we had a run there where Bunny could have had 2 consecutive goals on just brilliantly executed corners from Chloe Kelly. But your keeper, D'Angelo, took a slice of the devil's pie and made an incredible save on the first effort. And then Bunny comes back, has the second corner kick. I love this too, is that on the first one, Bunny is right there, standing like in the middle of the 6-yard box, drills the header. Great save by D'Angelo. On the very next corner, Bunny like tracks back a little bit and then goes back post for the second one. It's like 2 different looks, and you're just trying to feed Shaq at that point. You're just trying to get the best player the ball. Like we're going to change up the look. But D'Angelo, well, and the second look, that was blocked off the line by one of your defenders. But the link-up play between Kelly and Shaw is, I think, going to be pretty much always dangerous for us.
Yeah, 100%. Bunny Shaw, super crafty. That block on the line, I think that was Williamson, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably was. It's always Williamson.
Yeah, been great to kind of have her back. Like I mentioned, though, a little bit of a frustrating watch. Arsenal sleptwalked through the first half. They did come alive a bit in the second half with a coherent attack, but just couldn't really break through. Caitlin Ford was threatening, like you mentioned, had some good chances. Couldn't quite finish. I'm glad you mentioned Sabrina D'Angelo. She had some outstanding saves under pretty high pressure because that attack was kind of coming pretty consistently. Like, this was definitely a game of runs. Second half, 5-6 minutes of just high pressure on one end, and then they'd switch it to the other side. But I don't know, all in all, great kind of weekend of goalkeeping. And I'll tell you what, man, that 19-year-old that you guys have between the posts, Kira Keating, she also might have had herself a game.
Yeah, I mean, she just came up absolutely massive at the end of the game. Palova looked like she had the equalizer for you guys in the 93rd minute, and Keating made the absolute phenomenal save, pushes it over. It's a looping header. Keating's able to push it over wide. And then she comes back and has another incredible save to hold the ball out of the goal in the 95th minute.
Yes, definitely a save. That's textbook save. She absolutely was able to keep the ball from crossing the line, which would denote save or no save. She definitely was able to be on the save side of that. So, yeah.
I mean, from the camera angle I saw, buddy, looked like a save to me. So, we're just going to go ahead and take that.
Again, we're not out here politicking for VAR, right? But can we get another person? Can we maybe just have
Yeah.
a person that is just standing on the line that could see this? If we're not going to use computer technology or even just cameras, we got those.
Right.
Throw a person there. It's only another couple bodies, one on one end, one on the other, and we could put an end to all this.
I mean, I'm with you, man. Like, I do wonder, like, part of the NWSL media rights deal is like they talked about, which I thought was really interesting in their press release. Like, we're going to have more cameras, we're going to invest more on the game day product. You got to think when the WSL, they come around for their media rights deal, you got to include cameras on there. And I just have to think with the way all of these elite women's leagues are trending with like viewership, like let's get the goal line technology. You should be able to afford that. If you're the FA, why is that not already instituted in your top league?
That's a very, very reasonable ask. But again, the game's growing, so I think we can expect some of those good changes in the future. Let's hit another big FA Cup matchup. That was between Chelsea, Crystal Palace. Chelsea 1, Palace 0. Welcome to West London, Myra Ramirez. What did you see hidden this one?
Chelsea had 76% of the ball, and it felt like it. This, to me, felt like an Ashley Lawrence game. She was a menace running down the wing. She was creating a lot of opportunities, getting the ball into the danger area really nicely throughout the match. I feel like Palace's keeper, 27-year-old English goalkeeper Demi Lambourne, she had her work cut out for her in this match, partially because of all the chances Lawrence was helping create. And she made some nice saves and was able to get off her line in a few big moments. And speaking of Welcome to West London, Myra Ramirez, a lot of Lambourne's work was just trying to keep Ramirez from wreaking havoc in the middle of the box. So I think it was an entertaining match. I think if you're Chelsea, getting a win in the FA Cup is great. You're on to the next round. But this is not like the Premier League's Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace in women's football is a championship side. So You walk out of there with a 1-0 win. If you're looking at it optimistically from Chelsea's side, you were pretty clearly trying to get Ramirez comfortable in there. And, buddy, let's just say, later in the match, she looked pretty comfortable.
I mean, it's hard to talk about the match without talking about the goal, which wasn't even like a back heel. It was like a back foot rake. She's hitting with the bottom of her cleat.
Yep.
And just perfectly skipping that up. I mean, it was an incredible shot. Impossible to describe if you didn't see it. If you didn't see it, please go watch it. I mean, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's like I think you're right. I don't think her heel hits it, but it like the motion that she makes is like a back heel flick, but she manages to turn it into like a chip from close range. And as you can tell by Dino and I trying to describe this, as Dino said, you just fucking look it up on YouTube because it's incredible to see. And it's coming in from one of those Ashley Lawrence crosses. So it's coming at pace. And she had just to have the presence of mind. Yeah, to be able to turn and then get your foot to it. It was as audacious as it was expertly executed.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even have the creativity in that moment to be like, oh yeah, this is how this ball is going to go in. It's an unbelievable play.
Yeah, and so slick too. It was just like,
oh yeah,
yeah, I did that. It's like, yeah, first goal. And shout out to the announcer. I love when they use the opening an account to describe
love that.
One's first goal on a new squad. Just it hits the mark perfectly. Myra Ramirez has definitely had herself a year. Her, I think, alongside Linda Caicedo, Lacey Santos, they had a really good attack on the Colombia side. Took that team to the quarterfinals. They played your Lionesses really tough before ultimately falling short 2-1 in a pretty competitive, kind of scary-ish match. Now, what I'm excited about, Colombia is in the field of 12 for the Olympics. And I mean, if Myra Ramirez is going to look like this, I mean, when I looked it up, I couldn't believe she was 24 years old.
Yeah.
Because she just seems like Draymond out there. like you can't do anything with her physically. But she's still probably at the very, very front edge of her prime. And just a player like that in a small field type tournament is just real scary because she can turn it up. I think, Chewinga's probably also like that.
Yep.
A one-person fast break offense. I'm excited to see what she does at Chelsea, but the Olympics also pretty captivating too, considering they're one of the 12.
Dude, that is a great fucking call. Like, it was pretty clear to see throughout the match. And I know, we did say that Crystal Palace is a championship side, but she looked physically unmatched out there.
Yep.
You could even make the argument she looked like physically the best Chelsea player too, though. So I mean, it's not all that she's playing against a team in a lower division. She looks strong and fast and confident every second that she was out there. And I think you're totally right. I mean, you get in a little field of 12 in something like the Olympics, you get cooking in that first match. Now the confidence is high, and you already know the creative flair that Colombia plays with. And like you said, you have Caicedo and other players on that side. That could be something.
To bring it back to Chelsea real quick, she's probably the perfect Sam Kerr number 9 replacement, especially when you consider, like you mentioned, Lawrence, girl writing, awesome game from her. I mean, she's just clinical.
Always.
Canarud on the other side. LJ, maybe if she spends a little bit more time in that number 10 spot. Neve Charles, definitely the ability to put the ball where she wants it into dangerous areas. Myra Ramirez is just going to she's just going to get chances. And I think you give her chances and she's just as deadly as pretty much anybody. I mean, that finish, who else is doing that? Who else is even trying that? There might be one or two in the world, and then to be able to execute it at that level and just be cool as shit afterwards is it's kind of it's kind of intimidating for fans of other teams to kind of think about that. So we'll keep an eye on Chelsea. Anything else you saw in this one?
I think it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, I think you're onto something when you talk about her being a great Sam Kerr replacement, and now you think about that for the Champions League. Now, what if you have a Ramirez official rotation there at number 9? And it's like that thing we always joke about with these great teams. It's like, oh, we brought off this one player. Thank God. If you're the opponent, you're like, okay, I'm done with that. And now all of a sudden, me official's coming on for the last 25 minutes of the match or something like that. I mean, that kind of depth could go a long way.
The podcast that I mentioned earlier, the Sam Mewis, Lindsey Horan interview, they were recounting some time on the U.S. Women's National Team under Jill Ellis, where they were like, all right, so sometimes it's going to be you, sometimes it's going to be you. You're good at this, you're good at this, and this is just how it's going to be. And both had the same recollection of that with regard to being like, yeah, we were both just we just wanted to win so badly. And that was the vibe, in 2019. Very, very cool podcast. I learned quite a bit about, some of the stuff that we were talking about last week with regard to Lindsey Horan's comments about U.S. Women's National Team. She had some funny stuff about the red card. She was asked best player she's ever played with. I can't remember all of them. She mentioned Carolyn Seeger. Wendy Renard was one of the 4. And then the best player she ever played against, she said it was Emma Majri, who she now plays with at Lyon. Thought that was pretty interesting.
Interesting.
Definitely go check that out.
So I have not yet listened to it. I am very fascinated that those two basically have a lot of overlap. Like when Mewis was in her prime and Horan coming up, they're both essentially about as good as you can get as number 10s. So I think that positional overlap is super interesting. And I want to say another thing that Jill Ellis was always great at, that she did in 15 and 19. In 15, she had an older Abby Wambach. And she was just like, Abby, can you give me 20 today? Can you give me 25 today? Mm-hmm. And you bring her on at the end and you're able to do something. And then in the 19 World Cup, it was an older Carly Lloyd. And it was like, obviously, I think Carly Lloyd's mentality was, I'll play the whole fucking 90. But she was like, okay, Carly, you got to give, I know you want to win. Can you give me 30? Can you give me 35? Can you give me 25? So when you're playing tournament football, you have to have those wrinkles that you throw in when everybody is just dead-legged out there.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be exciting to see what happens at the Olympics right around the corner here, getting closer by the day. Some upcoming matches this weekend. Chelsea, first in the league, take on your Blues of Man City, currently sitting in second in the table. That one's going down Friday, February 16th. And a day later, Saturday, February 17th, my Arsenal take on fourth in the table, Manchester United. So we got 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4. Pretty big weekend in the WSL. A lot to watch this weekend. I'm excited.
Super into it. When Manchester City wins this match, they have the opportunity to go top. Now, they are 3 points behind Chelsea, so they'll tie them on points, but we're 2 goals behind them in goal differential. So there is a possibility that we, win 1-0 and we're still just trailing them in goal differential. Let me just tell you this. This is a learning podcast. We're getting into this league more. We're getting into, the FA in general, the FA Cup and the WSL over in England. If I were to tell you, I think it's real live that Manchester City wins a double this year. I'm not talking about Pep's squad.
Okay. I think it's possible.
I think it's live.
It's definitely live. So speaking of, your Manchester City drew Tottenham for the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. These matches are all going down on March 10th. Brighton and Hove Albion, they drew Manchester United. Everton drew Chelsea. And Leicester City drew Liverpool. So those are the 8. You probably have a good claim of being maybe the co-favorite or maybe just a slight 1B. We'll see. I think this match this Friday will be pretty telling. We'll get a really nice preview this weekend.
Hell yeah. Looking forward to it.
Let's switch over to Liga F, where the champs, Barcelona, never lost. 23 matches, all competitions, 22 wins, 1 draw, which really puts that Benfica draw into perspective when you really kind of look at it.
It really
Pretty
does.
wild. They take on Sevilla, one of 6 teams in Liga F, with a positive goal differential, and they're 6th in the table. So it's really the haves and the have-nots. They're at the very bottom of the have section, I would say. This one was pretty competitive. So Sevilla didn't quite scare Barcelona, but I think they had some runs just kind of up the middle of the field that gave Barcelona some problems. Sevilla just didn't have the finishing to be able to make Barcelona pay. But I took a little mental note of that, especially as I kind of continue to bat my eyes at PSG and just be astounded by their athletic prowess. That might be something I'm going to keep an eye on with regards to the Barcelona defense. Offensively, though, they get a super well-worked goal from Claudia Pina after 100 or 150 completed passes in a row. Pretty incredible. The commentator dropped this nugget that I thought was interesting. 11 matches in a row where Barca scores in the first half. I was actually a little bit surprised that it's not more than 11.
Yeah.
Vicky Lopez, she's going to be a real one. Let's just leave it at that. 17 years old. She's still got another, I think, 5-ish months till she turns 18. And she was out there directing traffic, threatening, super sharp passes. I mean, I'm super excited. You know that she's a prodigy if she's just getting regular run at Barcelona.
Yeah.
But it's been one thing, a little bit of a recurring theme with the growth of the women's game is to A, see really young players competing at the highest level, and then B, see them actually dominating spots of the game. We're just like, oh wow, like the team can't do anything with with this girl. It's pretty crazy. She had a really impressive performance. Barcelona gets another couple goals, both assisted by Atana Bonmatí. CGH gets one, Mariona Caldente gets the other. And then, I kind of skipped over it, but that first Claudia Pina goal, I mean, that was a laser. Absolute fucking laser. She's such a luxury to just have kind of just loitering, like on the outside of the 18. It's just like, oh, ball came my way. I'm just going to rip this one.
I mean, we talk about it. So, you mentioned Vicky Lopez. She's 17. She's appeared in 10 matches. She has 3 goals for the greatest club in the world right now. Claudia Pina, we mentioned her. You mentioned her. She hits a rocket. I feel like sometimes we forget to mention Esme Brutes. There are just so many great players all over the field at all times. I think the quip you were given last week about how many goals members of the team had, how many assists everybody had, and then you had to point out to us only 11 players can be on the pitch at one time, and they consistently have 13 players, 14 players, 15 players making statistical additions to the squad. It's just coming at you from all angles if you're any opponent of them. It's a miracle, and I'm really glad you said it. It puts that Benfica draw into perspective. It feels like a miracle when they're not winning 50 minutes in.
I mean, 100%. I will caveat that with one thing that I did notice. It did kind of feel a little bit, it's funny because we do compare this Barcelona team to an all-star team, but the NBA all-star game, kind of when people are just firing from every direction, every spot on the floor.
Right.
I'm not saying that they're not getting well-worked goals because the first Claudia Pina goal was beautiful football.
Right.
But it does feel like there's a lot of shots from different directions, and sometimes that could be an advantage. But sometimes the Chelsea style is the more optimal in a specific matchup. Let's just keep attacking down the middle. Let's get it to our closer, essentially.
Yep.
And let's let them get in rhythm. Let's let them get chances. And I guess that's my one very, very, very minor quibble is it is tough. Esme Brooks, perfect example. She doesn't get the most playing time. She does get pretty consistent appearances, but maybe it's tough to get in rhythm even when you play 25 minutes or 30 minutes, you might not get a look at goal, right? Even though you have that skill set, and it's just the way the team breaks when you're that talented, very NBA All-Star game type vibes, like I mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It's a wonderful problem to have, but you do wonder, if it rears its head at the wrong time, I feel like everybody just kind of has to look at each other and go, well, damn, we didn't expect that. And it's kind of hard to, it could be difficult to get past, but the results on the pitch have pretty much spoken for themselves at this point. So
Absolutely.
I would expect more dominating victories to follow until we get to the Women's Champions League again and they have to play the juggernauts from Bergen.
Yep, enjoy it now, Barca. Yeah, I think no, I mean they're obviously incredible, and we're sort of picking the tiniest nits after
really
a 3-0 win over Sevilla, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Some upcoming matches in Liga F. Barca, top of the table. They play Atletico Madrid Sunday, February 18th. Also on Sunday, February 18th, Real Madrid will take on Tenerife. Real Madrid in second in the table. Tenerife sits in ninth. And we had some more Liga F news. Some big news. I'm not quite going into the news yet, but little tiny baby nugget. Rachel Kundananji, new record holder for largest transfer fee. How about $787,000 US to facilitate her move from Madrid CFF to BFC? Your thoughts?
Creeping up toward that $1 million transfer fee money.
Let's get it.
I think we're going to get there. I think you might have said a couple episodes. We'll probably get there by the end of 2024. So you love to see that. Yeah, BFC, turns out if you're going to have Kundananji and Oshuala, I think they're going to score a lot of goals. I think that's my analysis. I think BFC is going to walk in as an expansion team and score a shitload of goals.
I wouldn't bet against it. That's a scary two-headed attack for sure. Just excited for the Copper Queens.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get Zambia a little bit more shine. One of our favorite teams from the World Cup. I'm still looking at my Orlando Pride to pick up the phone, put out the call to one Babarabanda.
Damn right.
She's trapped in China. Let's get her out of here. And yeah, let's get more Copper Queens vibes into the NWSL. I mean, that's never a bad thing.
Played an attractive brand of football. You know, we're going to run. We're going to attack. I'm into it, man. I mean, and on the more serious side, like I think people immediately started talking about it today, and we're recording this as of Tuesday. The signing was announced today. This is what it's going to take.
Yep.
If you're going to be competitive, you got to start paying for it. And I alluded to, or I mentioned the NWSL media rights deal. That's what the money's for. So
100%.
CBS and Ion and the networks that are going to be broadcasting the matches. People want to watch stars, and they want to watch stars who played in the World Cup. They want to watch stars who played in the Olympics. And I think as things kind of proliferate and as the game becomes more visible, they're going to want to see stars who played in the Champions League. So if you're our home league here, or one of our home leagues, as we'll discuss later in the podcast, you gotta pay to get those great players. So it's very encouraging to see.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, Oshuala is still at the very top of her game, but this one feels a little different. Kundananji, 23 years old, 25 goals Liga F last year, second in the league behind Alba Redondo, top 6 this year in Liga F again. She's not even yet in her prime. We saw what she could do in the World Cup. We saw what she does in Liga F pretty consistently. And just pairing her up with almost, I don't want to be disrespectful because Oshuala is just awesome, but like a little bit of a mentor vibe. Somebody that could kind of bring her along, bring her into her prime, through her prime. I think both of them are going to really blossom on that squad, just kind of playing off of each other. They'll get a chance to kind of build the culture out there. Like that's kind of how you make an investment in more than a player. We're starting to see that those signings were more than just kind of like the skill set of each of those players.
I think it's the only thing that's a little bit of a shame is that they have to go to a city like San Francisco that hasn't won a Super Bowl since the year 2000, when a beautiful city like Seattle is right there. We're right there, man. Like I wish, maybe the sale of the club is holding up some of these signings, but I obviously wish them both great luck. I'm also hoping for some great luck for Seattle Reign to maybe sign some players, but I digress.
Still time.
I mean,
just gotta stay patient. Let's fly back across the pond. How about a little Frauen Bundesliga? Not a league we spent a lot of time looking at, but we did pay pretty close attention to Eintracht Frankfurt. They take on the big dogs, Wolfsburg, who came into this one just a single point behind Bayern Munich after 13 matches played. This one was pretty close in the first half. So some familiar faces. Anyomi, Prasnikar, Freigang all had chances for Frankfurt. Wolfsburg stumbled into a goal when Frankfurt keeper Sina Johannes ran into mostly her own player, who was helped along by the Wolfsburg attacker. She falls over, 2 hands on the ball upon making contact with the ground. Fumble, ball goes into her own goal. Pretty terrible beat for her. It happens. that kind of cracked the seal on this one. Wolfsburg then went on to add a second when Lena Latvin scored in the 86th and a third in the 93rd when Vivian Endemann scored to make it 3-0. The story coming out of this one, though, more personnel related. Speaking of transfers and free agents, seems like Wolfsburg rock star Lena Oberdorf may be on the market. She's been linked to a move to Bayern Munich, which would be an absolute coup for Bayern. Anytime you can swipe the best player from your biggest threat, that's big time. And this one feels like it's maybe pretty close to getting pushed through. Oberdorf made her Bundesliga debut at 16 years old, 26 goals over 89 starts, 39 caps for the German national team. All of this before her 22nd birthday.
Pretty good.
16th on the Guardian's top 100 list. And last year, for those who don't recall, she was a Champions League Young Player of the Season. She's unbelievable. She put one on the crossbar, which looked like she was about 1.5 feet above everybody else, and just had a sonar for the ball. Like she just was on it. And you just notice her. She just sticks out, like just visually, the way she moves, body type, like she's just a little bit quicker of mind than everybody else. Skill set, obviously really high as well. Really cool to kind of get a really close look at her in this one against Frankfurt.
Yeah, I mean, that play jumped out at me too. I think we're right around the 20th minute. Nuria Rabano had a really nice free kick, a really great effort from her. And you're right, Oberdorf just is fucking hovering above everybody. And she nearly buried that. I think Johannes, I think she got a little bit of a touch on it to force it onto the crossbar. But she looked pretty close to beating there. You know, Oberdorf, still 22, is pretty surprising the way... I mean, I think you nailed it. She is one of those players. I know it's a cliche, but we love our cliches. Jumps off the screen. Like you don't even have to know that much to be like, oh wait, I think that player is better than the other players. Like, how come that player's always around the ball? How come that player is like everybody's flocking to that player? Like, yeah, I mean, she is just incredible. I think it would be, like you said, a huge coup for Bayern to get her. But, you know, I mean, I'll also hold out hope. No disrespect to any of our Bayern Munich pals out there. Not every great German player has to go play for Bayern, do they? Like, we could spread it out a little bit. And let me just say, though, I know this is isn't so much.
Let me guess. Seattle's really nice, Lena. Should come out.
I mean, come on. You know, the weather is fairly similar to parts of Germany. I mean, you swing out here.
I love it.
To this match. And, you know, we say this is a learning podcast. We're getting into these leagues. Dino mentioned, like, we haven't really covered Frauen Bundesliga in really any real depth. Awesome environment at Wolfsburg. Like, before the match started, they're, like, flickering the lights. Like, the lights are going off and then on. And you can hear, like, wolves howling. And, like, it sounded like they're showing highlights on the video board. It just looked like a badass atmosphere there. And, you know, this is probably to our, like, longtime women's football fans here. Obviously, Wolfsburg is like a historic women's club, won the Champions League before. Mm-hmm. I left this match thinking this is a squad I want to see more of. So, you know, I'm marking them on the list too. You know, DAZN shows the Frauen Bundesliga matches. I'm going to try to catch as many of those as I can, especially with Wolfsburg. And it would not be surprising if when we're doing next year's Champions League, if Wolfsburg is there and we're watching those matches way more closely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I mentioned, they're in prime position. They're still just a single point behind Bayern on the table. One other quick play I wanted to mention. I'm not sure if you caught this, but there was a play where Frankfurt's Lisanne Grau and Lena Oberdorf were going for the same loose ball, and Oberdorf, not even purposefully, like levels Lisanne Grau. Okay. Like just
yeah.
Like as soon as they made contact, Grau went straight, like the physics of it just went straight down. And Oberdorf just didn't, you know, she didn't do the extended chicken wing. There was nothing. It was just like we ran into each other and you went down and I went, I just was only propelled faster in the direction I was already going. I mean,
I love it.
I don't know. Like she's like a freaking android out there. Like she's just playing a different game.
Yeah. And she's just a good decision-making machine on top of all that physicality. So,
hell yeah.
You know, you add that together with the physical gifts. We're talking about a real world-class player here.
I did want to skip over to Eredivisie. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but give it my best shot. Ajax takes on Feyenoord. In this one, they get goals from their four big attacking players. Lily Johannes in the 12th, Rome Luchter in the 48th off of PK, Tini Hoekstra in the 52nd, and Chastity Grant in the 63rd. Great tune-up match for Ajax against ninth place Feyenoord, heading into a big March where they have a massive date with first place FC 20, who's currently sitting at 15 wins out of 15 matches played. So they're dominating, currently 12 points ahead of second place Ajax, who does have a game in hand, and the chance to notch a crucial 3 points against the league leaders. That one's going down Sunday, March 3rd, 6:15 a.m. Eastern, so we'll have to set our alarms for that one. Couple weeks ahead of their Champions League date with Chelsea. That one takes place on the 19th of March, 1:45 p.m. Eastern. But we're winding back to this one. Any big takeaways?
Well, you made me raise my eyebrows a little bit, so let me just say, because I care about you, buddy, that if you were to call an Ajax Feyenoord match a tune-up match for Ajax,
yes,
I'm pretty sure Feyenoord fans would want to physically fight you. Der Klassiker, I think, I don't purport myself to be any kind of expert in Dutch football. I think it's the biggest rivalry they have over there. So to our pals in Rotterdam, Dino's a man who speaks actual factuals, and this one looked like a tune-up match because 4-0, Ajax never looks like losing. And, we got to talk about it. The Johannes goal, the chip in, I got to get your thoughts on it because I'm trying to decide. I think the best part about the goal, so the chip is incredible, but she runs into the open space. Like she spots it way, way early. And now, you could say perhaps there was some poor defending on that one, the fact that she had that much open space to run into, but she spots it at the right time. She gets right into to attacking position, and she's kind of colliding with a defender when she makes the chip. From your perspective, from the way you saw the shot come off her boot, to the keeper's reaction, to Johannes's reaction when the ball goes in, do you think that was an intentional chip?
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely do. I've seen her in a couple domestic matchups. She's not afraid to kind of give it a whirl, and I think in this one, they had the game pretty well in control. It was the right play in that moment. I think she was surprised because that's a tough shot to finish. She kind of one-times it and also chips it, had, some loop to it. To me, that didn't cross my mind that it might have been something else that she might have been trying to do, maybe a cross or something.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a weird spot and a weird angle to attempt a chip. But maybe that could just be my caveman footballing brain that I'm not creative enough to. That could be, right back brain from me, where I'd be like, why would I ever try something like that? Because I was never physically capable of anything even remotely close to that. So, okay, I think you might be right. We may have a source close who might be able to tell us whether that was an intentional chip or not. We'll see. I'll stand by for that. But I want to point out another play that didn't end up being a goal, but Sharita Spezza had a 40-plus yard long ball to Tini Hoekstra later in the match. And it was a bomb. It was basically a Hail Mary. Spezza hits it fucking perfectly. Hoekstra has to make a leaping touch of it, and she just got a little too much of it that allowed Weimar, Feyenoord's goalkeeper, to dive onto it. But I just loved that they're like, all right, we're out here trying shit, going back to your tune-up match point, where they're just like, okay, they're trying things and they're going to go extra creative on this because they have their eyes not just set on their own league, which is going to be a little bit of an uphill climb for them to get there, but they have a big old prize in front of them in the Champions League. And I think they have to just be going out there going okay, well, if we're going to figure this out, if we're going to have to beat some of these giants in the Champions League, we're going to have to figure out some new wrinkles to our play.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the Spezza long ball, we saw her at a goal from pretty much the halfway line a couple weeks back.
Yep.
Her just firing the cannon is quickly becoming one of my favorite plays in all of women's football, just to see her kind of wind up and just take a massive crack at it. I think that could be something that they look at just because she's got that in her bag from back there.
Hell yeah.
She's a nasty defender. She's going to make it a long 90 minutes for anybody. But then you kind of take advantage of her ball skills, and you also kind of take advantage of Hoekstra specifically, giving her a chance to kind of run. Chastity Grant as well too, Luchter as well. If you could give them space, I don't know, that's a new angle, a new wrinkle that I think is really interesting.
You mentioned Rome Luchter. Man, she looked fucking 100% confident when she buried her penalty. Never a doubt, never a single doubt on that one. and then the Hoekstra goal to make it 3-0. And we got to mention the Wonder Kid again. Johannes played such a picture-perfect through ball to get the ball to Hoekstra for that assist. We have limited options watching the Dutch league over here in the US. So I'm watching a stream on YouTube. I'm watching the Dutch, a Dutch feed of it. Obviously, no American announcers on there or English speaking announcers on there. But when Johannes makes the through ball, the Dutch announcer just goes ah, and like he loved that through ball, and he should have. That's a man with great taste. It was a genius assist by Johannes, and then Hoekstra, she does what she does to make the finish.
Buried the finish too. That was on
Yeah.
point. But that's another reason why I think Lily Johannes definitely, her football IQ is, we're still calculating the number on that.
Yeah.
Just because you just see her do stuff that's like, oh man, like we're watching the game from a camera 50 yards in the air, right? So we can see the whole field, right? So it's kind of easy to see, okay, the ball should go this way. All right, here's what we can expect. She very routinely fakes me out. Where I'm just like, my eyes are going this way, the ball's going the other way. I'm like, oh, of course the ball needs, and it's like that. It just feels pretty rare. So that pass that you mentioned, genius, perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, hell yeah. That is an amazing core that we've talked about. Like when we talk about the highlights of this match, it's Chastity Grant, it's Rome Luchter, it's Johannes, and it's Spitza. That's a tough group of players to go into a match against. And then, Chelsea has to come to Amsterdam to beat them. They're in for a tough challenge. We mentioned it before. I'm not just trying to be an English football hater and just, as I try to say, City could win the league over Chelsea also. But I think if you asked anybody on Chelsea, they're gonna be like, yeah, we cannot take this lightly. We would be in huge trouble if we took this lightly.
I mentioned it on our draw episode. I think that's the most even match.
Yep.
Chelsea and Ajax. I think that one is going to go right down to the wire just because I think Ajax can kind of muck it up. Spitza back there is just so good.
Yep.
DeSanders on the other side, a little younger, but great energy, great motor, and I think getting better pretty consistently. I had been thinking that PSG and BK Häcken was going to be a little interesting coming out of that Lyon match. If they play like that, we might be able to just pencil them in into the semis.
Might be a tough day for Häcken, but I don't know. Let our pals up in Sweden talk shit to us if we're counting Häcken out, because great crowd in Gothenburg. But yeah, man, the more I watch PSG, the more confident we get. But this is football. At the end of the day, after what we've seen Häcken's defense be able to do, and I think you were mentioning this in the last pod, if we do come out and see a smothering Häcken performance on defense, are we allowed to be that surprised?
No, definitely not. And I think PSG, they did the same thing against Bayern.
Yep.
Where it was just like, we need a breakaway. We need one on whoever. Let's go do it. Baltimore, Chewinga, Gayoro, whoever's got the best look. It's kind of like the old U.S. Women's National Team style. It's just like, all right, make it happen. And, Chewinga also had the breakthrough goal against Lyon. I think that's just going to, I'm about to dust off another U.S. cliche. The old bend but don't break.
Yes.
We'll see the validity of that on the Häcken side. But that's still a few weeks away. Let's swing into the news. Some big happenings this week. Please tell me about it. Tell our audience about it.
Yeah, we had big news on Friday. The USL announced that a new women's league that we've known about for a while here, the USL Super League, was awarded Division 1 status by US Soccer. So basically, the USL announced it would apply for this status back in March of 2023. It didn't come as a surprise to anyone, but for me, personally, I couldn't help but feel like a little confused about this. Why would U.S. Soccer sanction another Division 1 women's league, really on the heels of the NWSL's landmark media rights deal that looks to have the league in great position as it continues to trend up? But after reading more about what goes into the Division 1 designation, I think things kind of started to really make more sense to me. So please, Dino, as the business-savvy person on this podcast, can you hit us with where these first 8 clubs in the Super League are located and some of those requirements that had to be met to make the USL Super League a Division One league.
Yeah, so this was interesting. Looking at the markets, Spokane, Washington, that's our
Yep.
farthest west squad. Dallas, Fort Worth, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Carolina, Lexington, Washington, D.C., and wouldn't you know it, our old stomping grounds, Brooklyn, New York. That's what really flipped it for
Nice.
me. We're just going to be honest. With regards to earning that Division One designation, the league needed to assemble at least 8 teams in metro areas across at least 2 time zones, 5,000 person stadiums. Principal owners needed to hold at least 35% of the club and have a net worth of at least $15 million. League's also got a pretty strong pipeline of cities that will come online in future seasons. Big cities like Oakland, Phoenix, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and also some smaller to mid-sized markets. Thought this was interesting as well, like Chattanooga, Madison, Palm Beach, and Tucson, Arizona. It's early, but anything in the league's launch announcement that you found particularly exciting, interesting? What'd you think?
I think it's really interesting that the Super League is going to be using the international calendar. So it's not going to compete directly with the
Hmm.
NWSL. So, I mean, I think that we're talking about like August to May, essentially, your traditional footballing calendar around the world. I wonder how that might affect those teams' abilities to kind of poach talent from the European leagues compared to the NWSL. Now, obviously, salaries are going to play a huge part in that, but I wonder about the appeal of European players who would say, okay, yeah, this is when football's supposed to be played. Now, am I psyched about playing a football match in Madison, Wisconsin in November? I think that could be tough. But,
Mm-hmm.
we saw a match played in November in Gothenburg, Sweden. So, these
Mm-hmm.
things are going to happen. We talk every time we're watching Braun, we get excited for snow games. So, that could be an
Hell yeah.
interesting wrinkle to this league. I do think, again, I'll just be completely honest here. I was lukewarm to the idea when I first heard it because I was like, well, why? Why would you have 2 Division 1 leagues? Like, who else is doing something like this? But then I realized to like some of the points you were making last week about the whole Lindsey Iran comments were we have a different footballing culture here, and it's probably very likely that most Americans do not give a shit about 2 leagues being Division 1 leagues. For the folks in Spokane or, later on down the road, like Chattanooga or, we talked about Brooklyn, Fort Lauderdale, Lexington, Kentucky. These are places that are like, yes, I'm going to have a professional football team that has the ability to sign great players to it. I got to imagine those markets are super, super psyched for this.
100%. I mean, not only do you get football, now we have kind of like almost like year round women's football in the US, which is,
Yep.
first of all, that's pretty awesome. And then, second of all, it also gives us more space. We've talked a lot about maybe like the coaching vacuum where we just don't have. And it was interesting. Third time I'm going to mention this, but Mewis and Haran also hit this point too, that in Europe the technical ability is just in the culture.
Hmm.
Mewis specifically was like, I had never been exposed to any of that, just kind of like all this technical work. And this is her as a professional playing for City, you know,
Mm-hmm.
right in the middle of her career, and she's just like never seen anything like this before, never done any of these kind of drills or whatever. So she called it out specifically. Now the USL Super League, all of a sudden, that's an opportunity to have real professional football with different coaching, management, development infrastructure. And maybe this is sort of wink, wink, the strategy for the NWSL to kind of have a little bit of a developmental league or relationship where young players can go, maybe as an alternative to college, a la what we're seeing in the G League on the men's NBA side. And if a couple of these markets blossom, there's some merger potential. There's some potential for teams to kind of make the leap. They'll already have the infrastructure, a little bit less risky. But we also should keep into perspective NWSL massive media deal. You have owners launching this league that aren't going to have the same level of financial space to operate
Yeah.
as the NWSL has, because all of it's going to be coming out of somebody's pocket, which is not the case on the NWSL side. So I think all in all, pretty exciting.
I'm 100% with you. I mean, there was some football snobbery involved at first, but I got over that like super quickly. I was like, okay, I think this is actually, the people who have founded this league are doing it thoughtfully. Just kind of like the idea of, adhering to the European football calendar. That's a really smart idea. And I love the point you make about, even if they don't want to look at themselves as like a developmental league, I know this is not a perfect one-to-one comparison, but in the MLS, FC Cincinnati, they were a USL team. Now, USL in men's football over here is a Division II league. But FC Cincinnati, they were able to prove that they were a viable football market, that they had fans who had an appetite for those games, and the team was well run, and they had a good fan base. They were able to make good footballing decisions and become a respectable club in just a couple years, and boom, they're quickly absorbed into the MLS. So I think you're onto something there. That could be part of what's happening here. Let me posit this idea to you. What if, and this is a crazy idea, but what if we had a couple leagues and then the best team in one of the lower level leagues got to play in the NWSL? And to add some more drama, what if the worst team in the NWSL had to go play in the other league? Could you even imagine something like that?
I mean, that's about as American as communism.
There you go. Damn. Oh yeah, I gotta break myself of those evil ways.
Yeah, all good. Did you just come up with that? I mean, that's pretty novel stuff. I mean, the problem is it's money, right?
Right. They'll never do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
no sports, no franchise owner in American sports is like, I would, yeah, sure, I'll be in danger of then playing smaller teams. Like they're never signing up for that.
I mean, ultimately, relegation in the United States, unfortunately, happens when a team owner has to sell because the value has just sort of been shrunken out of the franchise. And I think the prospects are all downward looking, so it's sort of like a pseudo relegation.
Sure.
Either way, though, I think ultimately we'll have promotion, right? Especially considering the big markets that they're looking at. And I don't know, I like it. More space, more room, more football, ton of it happening in Florida. Very pumped about that.
Yeah.
That'll keep me busy down here. Usually when a competing league kind of springs up, it's because they've got some interesting new ideas. And I think that's always a great scenario for innovation.
Did you see where the Brooklyn club is going to play?
No, where are they going to play?
They were going to play in the Brooklyn Cyclones Stadium, the minor league baseball team in Coney Island.
Let's go.
So
That would be fucking cool.
I feel like the wind is going to be fucking whipping off the East River down there.
Yeah. November.
That's going to be
January,
tough.
February.
Saying.
It's going to be tricky.
This is a bit of a tangent. I'm usually against playing, whether it's American football or regular football, I'm usually against playing those games in baseball stadiums. I've actually had some formerly OL Reign, now once again Seattle Reign fans tell me that they liked when the club played they used to play in the minor league baseball stadium in Tacoma, the Tacoma Rainiers. And they said they kind of liked the charm of it. It was like they felt like very underground about it, and when the NWSL did not have a giant media rights deal, and like you could pretty much, there were very few ways to get the information. A lot of those folks said they liked the vibes of that. Me, I still look at it a little sideways, but I saw some Reign games. I actually saw Reign play the Pride a few years ago in that little baseball stadium. I got to see Marta from like 10 feet away. I was like totally fucking starstruck and was like, holy shit, like it's one of the greatest players ever. Like I'm like right here. So I'm very, very psyched about the USL Super League. I think I was pretty quickly swayed on it, and I'm going to guess for anybody who's interested, we'll probably be chatting about that league a little bit on the Into the Channel podcast.
Love it. Looking forward to that 1,000%. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we did it, buddy. I think we covered everything there could possibly be to cover in the world of football.
If only there were enough hours in the day. Just so much going on. Great games again this weekend. There's actually great game. We're taping this Tuesday night. There's actually great games tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to be enough turnaround time to get them into the pod, but I think Barcelona's in action tomorrow. But yeah, WSL big time matchups, D1F, Liga F, the FA Cup draw, NWSL's heading into preseason. I mean, Things are bubbling. It's an exciting time.
Things are happening, man. I mean, this is, we're right in the thick of it right now. Like, I think we're going into an international break here coming up where we're enjoying the football as it happens right now.
Oh, and I do have a surprise for you. Intothechannel.com, up and running. Anybody that wants to check it out, we're going to start posting some written material. We'll have links to all of our social, links to our YouTube, Spotify, everything that we're doing for the most part. You'll be able to find it up on our site, intothechannel.com. With that said, I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Subscribe or follow us, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen, or browse the internet. That's available to you now as well. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated at ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel Pod on Threads. Big thanks to you for watching or listening. We're thrilled to have you hanging out with us. Big thank you to my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel, for earning Division I status all day, every day. Let's fucking go.
You know what? I like doing this podcast with you for many reasons, but the fact that you dropped on me as a surprise that the website is up, that just shows we ain't never getting relegated, buddy. We're here to fucking stay.
We're out here.
All right, man. I will talk to you next week.